Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how
He's alive!
Welcome to where the weird ones are.
Every time I speak, I want the truth to come out.
Powerful figures in Hollywood as well as powerful politicians who are in fact not human. They're reptiles or they're lizards or perhaps extraterrestrials.
I don't think it is a human. I think it's a Sasquatch.
Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.
Let's get weird.
What's up, you fucking weirdos? Welcome to another episode of Where the Weird Ones Are. My name is Kevin, but you probably already knew that, and if you didn't, now you do. Today's episode is with my good buddy, Nomar Slevik. Such a good conversation, always is. I had the opportunity to meet him twice in person, both times. It was awesome. Good conversation. Oh my God, there's such a sweetheart of a man. I can't say enough nice things because it wouldn't even all of the nice words that you could say about somebody even wouldn't do it justice. So, Nomar is actually an author and researcher of the UFO phenomena, however you want to say it. And he's written several books now, like anthologies and stuff like that. And it's actually the 10th anniversary of UFOs Over Maine. So he revised it and added more stories and republished it. So it's UFOs Over Maine 2024. And I have a few stories in there. So I would definitely highly recommend this book. Not only because my stories are in it, but Nomar is a fucking stand-up dude. And he writes really well. He emailed me a story, one of the stories that are in it, like months ago, because I was asking him questions about it because he had made posts about it, and I just asked him, and he sent me the story. But yeah, he's a wicked good dude. He's an author, and he also has a podcast called I Want to Believe. It's on its 7th season. Cryptid Warfare is on there. With him, because Nomar did a collaboration with them as well. So, and you guys know that I love Cryptid Warfare, so Drew and Zook, every time I get a chance to shout them out, I do so. So, but yeah, again, Encounter Quest was amazing. A lot of fun, met a lot of people, had a lot of wonderful conversations. One of them about mushroom people, which I will have that guy on hopefully soon. He did leave a comment on the website. His name's Jeff, and he's what the hell does he do? Shoot, I'm sorry, Jeff, if you're listening. I know he does maps. He does something artistic. I know that much. But I got to talk to him more and figure out exactly what he does. I've seen his booth a couple times, and I'm pretty sure it's art. Like he'd make paints and stuff like that. But yeah, I met him and had a really eye-opening conversation with him. So hopefully, when I reach out to him, because I don't want to bombard people as soon after like an event and just like be like, hey, get on my podcast, kind of thing. So, but I met a few people that are interested in hopping on. So, with that being said, the hot sauce is going to be on the website soon, probably sooner than I thought, but it will be pretty soon. So, and a quick shout out to the sponsor. If you can't see all of the bottles back there, it is Flavors of the Forest, Bigfoot Breath, raw garlic powder. Well, raw garlic dust. It's actually really good, and I just literally cooked a fucking steak with it. Super tasty. And the garlic that's in the hot sauce is that garlic. So shout out to Flavors of the Forest. If you want to get your own garlic dust of Bigfoot Breath, you got to go hit up flavorsforest.com and navigate it through there. It's really good. He's out of Oregon, or Oregon, however you want to say it. Yeah, good dude. Good dude. I like him a lot, actually. So, but yeah, other than that, I think that's all I got to cover. So check out Nomar's podcast. Check out his books. He wrote this one too, Granite Skies, which is it's a really good book. It's based on Mike Stevens' encounters with the UFOs and whatnot, all of his lifelong encounter stories and experiences. So, which actually Mike is going to be on the show as well here in the near future. So, other than that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy that you're here. Every day above ground is a good frickin' day. But if you happen to be struggling with thoughts of suicide or harming yourself in any kind of way, faction, or just struggling with depression, period, please, here in America, dial 988. It's a suicide prevention hotline, and they will help you out the best that they can. And I just want you to know that you're here for a reason. Out of all of the souls that could have been here, you were chosen to be here, and I like that you're here. I wouldn't want to exist on this timeline if you weren't here. But you don't realize the hole you will leave behind if you decide to go. So there's people out there that care about you, and you may not even realize it's going to affect people that you don't even realize that it's going to affect. So anywho, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to be patient. And I know it's really hard to be patient. I know. It's not easy. And I know it's easier said than done. Trust me. Things will get better. It might take a long time. You just got to switch your mindset, So, yeah, so please like, follow, share, subscribe if you like today's show or any other shows. You can leave a rating and review on Apple Podcast and Spotify. If you're interested too, you can leave a rating and review on the website. I'd appreciate that a lot too. And the merch is on the website, the blog, and Patreon's up $5 a month. Conspiracy Tuesdays, story time are the extra content that you get. You also get a free coffee mug upon becoming a Patreon. And the latest Patreon, his name's Larry. If you know, you know. He's the man. Love him. Super supportive dude. Always commenting and sharing. So he bought 2 t-shirts back in the day last year. So that was awesome. And I am greatly appreciative of that. I didn't set out to making this podcast to make money or to try and replace my job. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to just talk to people and have these fun conversations that I love having. And what better way to get people to actually want to talk to me than be like, hey man, I have a podcast. Would you like to talk to me? Oh, you have a podcast. Yeah, let's talk. But if I didn't, it would be I'd just be that weird guy. Not that I mind, but it's fun. So if you're interested in supporting me on Patreon, I would love to have you there. If not, I'm totally fine with you just being here. And, if you don't like the show, then you don't like the fucking show and you don't want to fucking listen. And that's totally fucking fine with me. So, anywho, I feel like there was something else that I had to say. But you want to know what? 40 Fest is coming up in June 8th, right here in Sanford, Maine. If you haven't gotten your tickets, please do so. It's on Facebook at 40 Fest. Or you can reach out on socials looking for Paranormal 5. They'll direct you in the correct way, the correct place to go for those tickets. It's right here at the Sanford Memorial Gym. It should be a good time. Food trucks and a lot of cool vendors. So, and I will be there vending both the new flavor hot sauce blueberry and the one that I've been making for myself for the longest time, which I have dubbed hot lemon squeeze. So we got weird sauce, hot lemon squeeze, and blueberry heat. So come on down if you're in the area. Other than that, let's get into it with Nomar, shall we?
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Let's get weird! Let's get weird! Let's get weird! Let's get weird! Weird! Get weird!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode. I'm so happy that you're here. And so today I am joined for the second time by Mr. Nomar Slevik.
What up?
He is the author of UFOs Over Maine, and we're actually here to talk about the 10th anniversary of the book and its re-release. So, Nomar, for the people that aren't familiar with you, if you don't mind, giving them a little background of who you are and what it is you do.
Sure. So my name's Nomar Slevik, and I'm a writer, researcher, and sometimes investigator of the extraterrestrial phenomena. And when I say sometimes investigator, it's I'm not always going out in the field and investigating an encounter, but what I am doing is interviewing a lot of witnesses, and that's where I get a lot of my stories. And sometimes I'm privileged enough to share someone's story. And when that can happen, I'll either share it on my own podcast or I'll include it in some of my writings. And the new book that you mentioned, UFOs Over Maine, the 10th anniversary edition, the first one came out in 2014. And I started writing that book like 6 years before that. And the catalyst of that first book happened when I was like 4 years old, when I had my own first ever like encounter with something with the paranormal. And that encounter was really the catalyst of me being involved with everything paranormal since. And I'm 46 years old now, which is crazy for me to think about. But
That's crazy to me to think about because you don't look like you're 46.
I know, man.
Maybe,
when I
would give you 40 at the most.
Yeah, well, thank you. And when I think of like a 46-year-old, like even now, those are like actual men, and they have a suit and tie, or they like have mustaches and children and homes and stuff,
And
not
monocles.
Yeah, monocles. Not some friggin' weirdo, talking on the internet with another weirdo, but this is where we are, and I like it.
Yeah, I love it too, man.
Anyways,
love it too.
tangent. I had this interesting UFO sighting when I was 4 years old, and I still remember it to this day. And long story short, it felt like I saw this lightning bolt get stuck in a cloud. And it was really weird to me. And I don't really know what happened other than I like fell asleep. And then I woke up in the morning and it was still there. And at 4 years old, I knew then that a lightning bolt only lasts for less than a second, and to have it still be there, I was like, what the hell? So I ran downstairs and I got my dad. So it's morning now, and I still see this like jagged yellow line of electricity stuck in a cloud. I get him, I bring him upstairs to show him, and that's when it's gone. And I was like, what the hell?
Of course.
So, I'm trying to explain to my dad that there was a storm the night before and I was watching thunder and lightning. And then there was this lightning bolt that got stuck in the cloud. And he was doing what adults do when a 4-year-old's talking weird. And they're like, yeah, patting my head. But I was really insistent. And he kind of had to get down on my level and put his hands on my shoulders. And he's like, buddy, there was no storm last night. I don't know what you're talking about. And since I was 4 years old, the next thing caught my attention and I forgot all about it.
Of course.
A couple weeks later, I was witness to the Aurora Borealis, or the Northern Lights, which funnily enough, we're recording this on the 26th of March right now, and we're supposed to be able to see the Northern Lights tonight if it wasn't so cloudy. So just kind of interesting.
I didn't know that. That is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's supposed to be-
Synchronicities.
Yeah, synchronicities. So anyways, I saw the Aurora Borealis like 2 weeks later. So at a really young age, I think a core memory was made that, weird shit happens in the sky and I should pay attention, And so I've been paying attention ever since, and that kind of kept snowballing into my teenage years and then into my 20s, where I was collecting tons of stories, anything paranormal like Bigfoot, hauntings, UFOs, all that good stuff, Loch Ness, Bermuda Triangle. But I did have a keen fascination with extraterrestrial stuff. Like that's the stuff that like really scared me and fascinated me. So I collected more of those stories and talked more about those types of stories. And that developed into, I've always been a writer. So that developed into me kind of translating those stories into like a novelization of those stories, something that could be a little bit more interesting to read other than just a quick little article in the paper or something, So all of that took like 6 years, and then in 2014 I was able to get my first book published, and 10 years later and a whole bunch of books later, I wanted to revisit UFOs Over Maine. And that first book was put out by a traditional publisher, and that was really fun and an interesting experience. And but it was a very short book. It's like 130 pages, I forget. There's maybe 20 or 25 encounters in it. And I reread it back in 2022, and it was very cringe to me. I imagine anybody looking back on a decade prior to anything you worked on, you probably, like, oh God, this is awful.
Yeah.
And so that's what I thought. And I was like, I still haven't written the book for UFOs in Maine. I haven't written it yet.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to take that book and transform it into like the ultimate experiencer edition. And so I decided to completely take it all apart and completely rewrite it and revamp it. So all of the original stories are there, but they're all expanded. Sometimes witnesses have been re-talked to. More information was found because I've become a better researcher over the past decade. And then I was able to also add an additional like 150 encounters. So this is a tome. It's huge. It's over 400 pages. And we're talking Men in Black encounters, landed UFOs, creatures, alien interactions, fights with aliens. There's a crab looking thing that was like 4 feet long that was seen walking. So tons of weird stuff has been seen and experienced in Maine. And I'm so happy. Like I feel like now I've finally have written that book on UFOs in Maine, like the book, you know?
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm
That's
excited about it.
exciting. I have to get that book because I do have a couple of your books, which actually one's sitting right here in front of me, and I'll show everybody, which I actually met the guy that this is based on.
Oh, really?
Um, Granite Skies.
Yeah. Yeah, that book is about Mike Stevens, and it's a book all about him, and he's had a lifetime of
Oh my God.
encounters.
Yes.
Yeah. Starting at like 3 or 4 years old, similar to me, although his experiences were much more terrifying than what I've experienced over the years. But yeah, it was crazy to sit down with Mike and get all of these insane stories. I think there's something like 38 stories in there or something that he recounted, but he's had hundreds of encounters. We could only include so many, you know. He's had
Right.
so much, but yeah.
Right. I heard this weird thing with these or these alien experiences, like when you see them or whatever, and you have missing time or whatever, and
Sometimes.
your memory recounts of like an owl, or something like that. And I've been
Sure.
hearing a lot of these stories a lot lately,
Yeah.
where it almost seems like they are projecting a false memory so that you don't remember them, and they're picking something that you can associate with, like, I don't know, being outside,
Yeah.
essentially,
Yeah.
and so you're seeing an owl because I guess, because I've never seen an extraterrestrial or interdimensional being, whatever
Sure.
you want to call them. So I don't know specifically what they look like. I only know what I've been told by people who have, and
Yeah.
they tend to have these big bulgy eyes, and a lot of owls have really big eyes. So, um, I don't know if that's something that you've heard of at all, but
Sure.
I've heard I think it was last week. It was like three different podcasts were talking about owls and UFOs, and I was like, "What?" And the weirdest thing I will say, it came the I s- these were all new episodes of podcasts that I listened to, and they all dropped 2 weeks after I had gotten an owl tattoo on.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, it was so weird. I was like, "Wait, come on now! Now you're telling me there's something to owls? Come on!"
That's wild, dude. Wow,
It's
that's
just like,
amazing.
yeah, synchronicities all around lately for me.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been happening a lot. It's been increasing.
Yeah,
Um,
that's really interesting. And but to go back to what you're talking about with the false memory, yeah, that's definitely been a theme in UFO experiencers for centuries, it seems like now.
yeah.
And there's actually a really great book kind of written specifically about this. And it's from an author named Mike Cleland or Cleland. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but it's Cleland, Mike Cleland. And it's a book called The Messengers. And it's just about, you know, these owl interactions that people are experiencing and how it is a phenomenon. And um, interestingly, a lot of the experiencers that I speak to, um, actually none of them have owl experiences, but they do have some sort of screen memory experience where
Uh,
what they saw wasn't as frightening as it might have been, or just the beginning of an encounter happens, they remember, and the end when they're being brought back, they remember, but it's a complete blank slate in between. Which is, you know, interesting in its own right. But Mike Stevens, the book you held up earlier, The Granite Skies, he had some encounters with um, like these white albino deer, which was interesting, and he thought it might be a screen memory. There's been other weird looking animals. One was like a weird mix of like a minx and a raccoon, and you know, this weird little tiny animal, and he couldn't tell if that animal was the screen memory or that animal was the extraterrestrial, or you know, like he wasn't sure what to make of it. And he also had this other thing happen to him where he looked out his bedroom window, and he was like, I can't remember exactly, but 12, 13, 14, something like that. and he looked out his window and he saw these really short troll-looking things, and they were wearing clothing that looked like it was made out of burlap sacks, and they looked, like these weird little scrunched up trolls, and they all had shovels in front of them, and in front of them in the shovel were these perfectly round holes, almost like they had dug the holes with their shovels. But Mike recalled that the shovels appeared too big for the holes that were there, and this whole thing like struck him odd, to the point where even though that is an odd sight that he's looking at, he feels that that might have been a screen memory to what was actually occurring. And who knows, maybe what was actually occurring and what the screen memory were kind of getting mixed together in some weird way. Who knows, but
Yeah.
really odd stuff.
I know it's probably hard for you to answer this question because mainly because you're not Mike. But did he ever, when he's telling you all these stories, because some of them get pretty, they get really scary.
Yeah.
And I don't wish that upon a lot of stuff that he, has gone through. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, really.
For sure.
But has he ever had a situation where he feels like they're trying to take his soul from him?
Not that I recall in that sense. Like, I don't think he ever put it to me like that before. But he's definitely had, scary moments. He recalls that there was some sort of intervention, if you will.
Yeah.
It seemed like he had been being visited by a certain species. And these weren't terrifying encounters. In fact, they were like kind of interesting to him. And even though they were strange and a little scary, they were also like really positive beings. And there was like a motherly type of being that was there as well. And there was a childlike being that was there that was almost like a counterpart to him that he could like joke around with and stuff. And he recalls that he might have been abducted one evening from a different sect or species, and these positive or good ones intervened and took him out of that situation. And he recalls that there was some blood coming from his nose during that whole interaction, and it's all very foggy. All he really remembers are like the good ones kind of keeping him safe. So that might be the closest thing that I have to it. Doesn't really answer the question, but
no, yeah. I mean, I don't feel like, I didn't think that you would be able to, but
yeah, sure.
Because
But Mike would be good to come on sometime and talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think after I met him, he started following the Facebook, but
Nice. Yeah,
he doesn't, when I met him, he did, that was his first like speaking thing. His first like public speaking, and he's like, oh, like because I asked him, I was like, if you're comfortable, I would love to have you on and talk about, your experiences. And he's like, yeah, maybe. I was like, I wouldn't push you to it. Like, I'm not gonna like harp on you or anything. I'm not gonna message you like a bunch of times. I would like to talk to you. I'm even if we're not recording, like just to discuss it, like, because a lot of them are pretty interesting. Because I read some of that book. I haven't gotten through all of it. But it's pretty interesting. And some of the things that he talked about that day was pretty interesting. So
yeah, a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
And but I'll talk to him. I'm sure he'd love to come on and talk to the Mike I know is very much more comfortable talking about stuff now. So
oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, so
It's been almost a year.
Okay.
Since I saw him.
I'll put a bug in his ear.
I think it was September for what was it, Paraflixx?
Oh, Paraflixx,
yeah. So yeah, that was a good event too. That was pretty cool. That was a nice little spot.
Yeah.
And then I was gonna try and put on my own event here in Sanford, and then all of a sudden I started seeing flyers for 40 Fest, and I was like, oh shit, now I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
All right, I think I hacked in. We're We're on the air?
Shh, security's outside.
But how's my hair?
It's a radio station. Psst, psst.
You guys hear about the Beyond the Shadows podcast with Ryan and Scott?
You guys into paranormal?
What about true crime?
How about UFOs and cryptids?
We also have mad hauntings.
We got security.
No, we don't. We're not big enough to need it yet.
No, we got security.
Hey, what are you guys doing? Get out of here! Listen to the Beyond the Shadows podcast. Beyond the Shadows!
It's Missy and her husband, and that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it is awesome. I messaged her and I was like, hey, I was like, I was gonna try and do one. I was gonna try and do an event for myself for like this here in Sanford too. I was like, how did you get the Memorial Gym? I was trying to do that and I couldn't because I wasn't a company. They said I wasn't a business. I didn't have insurance and for like business insurance or whatever. And she's like, oh no, I didn't mean to step on your toes. I was like, you're not stepping on my toes. I'm just like, I'm happy that somebody's doing it. I don't have to do it. So but yeah, no, it's I'm looking forward to that for sure. I'm actually vending.
Awesome.
Vending that I started since the last time you and I had an actual discussion. I started kind of sort of like a side business for hot sauce.
Oh, cool.
Which is kind of goes along with my podcast brand, so it's like it's labeled like the same, and it's there's going to be a bunch of different flavors. I only have 2 flavors right now, but I'm only selling one at the moment.
Okay.
And I'm gonna be selling them at vending spots at conventions and stuff like that. But they have each flavor has a different cryptid as the as the logo. So
that's amazing.
I'm calling it weird sauce. So that's what it's called.
I love it. I'm gonna have to get some, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. I can't wait. I'm excited. I'm trying it out here and in 2 weeks, I think maybe 3 weeks, I'll be in North Carolina vending an event with and get to see Ron Moorhead and
cool
and a bunch of those guys down there.
That's awesome.
So that's fun and exciting. What fun and exciting things, because I know there's I think the Cryptozoology Museum is doing one at the end of April, like April 27th or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's going to be down in Portland, and it's shaping up to be a really big event. There's an assistant director that's been appointed by Lauren Coleman, and his name is Chris Packard. And I know you know Chris. You've met him, and he's been on the show actually. I think, right?
Yes. So I was actually just talking about him Sunday night on.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was on Spaced Out Radio.
Oh, cool.
So there's like I just flashed his book in front of fucking 1,000 people.
That's awesome. I love Spaced Out and I love Chris, so that's awesome, man. But yeah. So Chris has been doing an amazing job putting that event together, and he's having a bunch of cool speakers come out, and obviously a bunch of cool vendors will be there. So yeah, shaping up to be something pretty exciting, man.
Sweet. Are you on the I mean, your book just came out.
Yeah.
For UFOs Over Maine 2024. Are you getting in already like signed up for some of these events, or?
I'm trying, man. I'm trying my hardest. For me to get to Southern Maine right now is a little difficult for me, so I won't be at Fortean and I won't be at the Cryptozoology Museum. But so I'm trying to do some stuff more local to me, and on I think it's May 26th. I will be at a place in Searsport, Maine, and it's called H&H Mercantile, and it's a spot kind of near where the flea markets are in Searsport, right at the beginning of summer, which is exciting. And it actually falls on 2 days before the 10-year anniversary of UFOs Over Maine, which is pretty exciting.
That is exciting.
So I'm going to be there having an event, signing books and telling stories and stuff. So I'm excited about that. That's kind of like the official release party, if you will, although it's not going to really be a party, but it's a place to gather and share some stories and sell some books and all that good stuff.
Absolutely.
And lining up some library speaking appearances, and there's something that happens locally up here in the Bangor area, and it's called a Witches Walk, and that happens and that happens every October, and so we're hoping to have a table there as well, which will be fun.
Cool, man. Cool. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, and keep adding stuff in between as they become available, you know.
Yeah. I did want to share with you that I actually am doing my first speaking event in September in Massachusetts.
Nice.
So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know if you heard of her show or anything, but her name's Jess, and I'm not gonna say her name because I might mess it up because I know it's like I'm not gonna say it. But it's very Italian name. Um,
Okay.
but anyway, so she does a YouTube show called Cryptid Bits with General Tidbits, and she decided to put on her own event. And she was looking, I have been talking to her. I met her in Pennsylvania in August.
Nice.
Actually, the funny thing is I walked up to her and she was on her phone because it was an outside event. I was like, "We're outside. Why are you on your phone?" And she just started talking to me. I was like, "Do you like?" She was like kind of vague, but I was like, "Do you even know who I am?" And she's like, "No, I have no idea who you are." And I was like, "Where the weird ones are? We've been talking for like months." And she's like, "Oh."
That's amazing.
But yeah, no, she's putting on that event, and a couple people had told me about it, and my buddy Michael Thompson, who's also a writer, um, was is speaking at it. So I reached out to her. I was like, "Hey, I would like to vend. If you need anything, let me know." I was like, "I know a couple people that might be interested in speaking. If you need speakers and blah 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 blah." And then she's like, "Yeah." She's like, if I need anything, I'll let you know. But if you want to vent," she's like, it's entirely free. She's not charging for it or
Oh, wow.
for like to
That's
see
nice.
speakers or anything. She wants to create more traffic for the vendors and stuff like
Wow.
that. So, and then I was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "And if you happen to need a speaker, I wouldn't mind doing it." And then she goes, "What is your speaker's fee?" And I was like, "Well, I've never done it, so it's free." And she's like, "You're in." I was like,
Perfect.
"Sweet."
Perfect. Yeah. That's amazing, dude. Awesome, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna talk about some Maine cryptids and some
Sweet.
mental health, with
Oh, good.
because like and Mike knows,
Yeah.
it's taxing on your mentality sometimes when you
Yeah.
encounter these things. So
Absolutely. That's really cool, man. Very cool.
yeah, thanks. But yeah, so we you the first book of UFOs Over Maine came out in 2014.
Yeah.
You revised it so much bigger and thicker
Yeah.
and girthier.
Yeah. It's a thick
Way
boy.
more stories.
Yeah.
Um, and then you have this movie over here
Oh,
that's out
yeah.
on Paraflixx for people
That's
to
right.
check out if they're interested. It's
That's
a
right.
short documentary on a couple in Alfred, Maine,
Yeah.
which their house actually is like 10 minutes from my house.
Oh, wow.
Um, so that was pretty cool to watch. I
Yeah.
was able to obtain a DVD from Nomar when I saw him at Parafest in September, and then he graciously gave me this poster.
Beautiful.
Um, and you see it in almost every video now,
It's
unless
true.
it's the side by side videos, because then it's a smaller form
Yeah.
video. But yeah, you see it in most of them. You definitely see them in the intros because it's a wide span video on the intro. So
Yeah.
definitely go check that out if you're on Paraflixx. So,
Yeah.
but
Paraflix
yeah,
is pretty cool, man. So that's cool. I appreciate the shout out on that.
absolutely, absolutely. So I did want to ask you though too. Are you planning on doing any other like documentaries of some kind to shoot out to Paraflixx at all, or?
I the desire is there, but I'll tell you, man, and just to be straight up honest, um it's a rich man's game, to make a quality documentary, because I
Yeah.
don't know if if you or your listeners have checked out what's available on Tubi for documentaries, but there's a whole lot of crap to wade through, to get to the good stuff. Obviously, Small Town Monsters has some great stuff up there, so I
Oh yeah.
recommend checking those out because those are always quality. But to make a quality documentary, with a quality image and quality audio, and to go on site and to interview people, it all takes money. and it's just not something that's sustainable for me. I had to have a fundraising campaign to be able to shoot that documentary, and even then the the fundraising failed, so I only raised like a third of the money, then the rest had to come out of pocket, and that was really rough. So it took, I think I figured out the math once Paraflixx acquired it, because it was on Amazon Prime for like 4 years. Once Paraflixx acquired it, which was like 5 years later, I think I finally made my money back over 5 years, I think.
Yeah.
So it's
Wow.
yeah, so it's a, for me anyways, the way I shouldn't speak for everybody. So the way I want to make a documentary, it's a rich man's game. I don't have the gear, so I have to rent it. Renting the gear is expensive. So it would make more sense if I wanted to make a lot of them to buy one, but I can't do that either. So I don't know. It's for me, my passion is writing, but I love playing with audio and video. So if I could do it, I will. But I do have some ideas for some cool stuff, but I don't know if I can make them happen or not. But if I can, I will.
Yeah. I want to dip my feet into the documentary realm as well.
It's a good time, man.
Yeah, one thing that I really, really want to do is the Spectre Moose. I want to go out and talk to people around Lobster
Hell
Lake
yeah.
and shit. You know what I
Hell
mean?
yeah, dude. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I talked about it with a couple people now, and I was like, if anything, it would be a documentary about moose. And who
Yeah.
doesn't like a moose?
Right.
They're scary. They're scary, but
dude, they're super,
they're majestic.
Right, on their own, they're definitely scary,
Yeah.
but also majestic, and that'd be cool. The Spectre Moose of Maine is a great lore to talk about, man. That'd be awesome. And to go back a little bit about making documentaries, there are some quality dudes in Maine making some really cool documentaries. Nate Breslin is one of them, and he does really great stuff with a limited budget, so it can be done, but he's also like half my age, and so he's got the energy to kind of like run around and do his thing. And for me,
the other writer there, where
did you get the Crawlers book?
Yeah, the Crawlers book. Is that kid?
Yeah, that's that kid.
Okay, all right, yeah. I gave him my card, asked him if he wanted to come on. He's like, yeah, sweet. And
yeah,
but
Nate's awesome.
I've doing these conventions, I have picked up so many books. I have so many books.
Yeah.
I had books before, but now I have so much more. And working 60 plus hours a week sometimes, and then trying to get to the gym and do stuff with the kids and stuff sometimes, and I'll sit there and I'll be like, I really want to read this book, but I really also just want to sit here and stare at the wall.
Yeah. I feel you, man. I feel you. I really do. There's so many books and so little time, and yeah, it's tough.
You want to know what though? You have the perfect voice for audiobooks. I tell you that. Like
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. Like I could listen to you talk all day. Like I listen when you guest on other podcasts, when I know about it, like on podcasts that I don't know about, I'll specifically go listen to your episode just because I like hearing your voice. And I listen to your podcast, so which we haven't brought up at all, which is I Want to Believe.
Yeah.
It's on its 7th season. It's amazing podcast. I love the way you do it. I love the in the middle, like the little like DJ scratch, and
yeah.
I get it stuck in my head too. Sometimes I'll just be like walking around the house or something. I'll be like, unbelievable, inconceivable.
That's awesome.
Just all the time, and everybody's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I was like, "Yeah, leave me alone."
Spread the word, man. Spread the word.
Yeah.
Although it's probably your kids, and
yes, it's usually the kids. They're just like, "What?" Like you wouldn't know about it. It's
you wouldn't get it. You wouldn't get it, idiot.
Yeah,
because that's how you talk to your kids, right?
It's an inside joke, okay? You wouldn't get it.
But yeah, man, been doing the podcast for I'm in the 7th season now, so I'm on like year 7 of doing it, and it's had a few different formats, if you will, kind of. One thing that kind of made it really unique is when we started out, we would release all the episodes at once, like Netflix style.
Yep.
And, so I would work on them for like 3 months at the end of the year. My buddy and I would record all the episodes, and then I'd take them and edit them all and put them all together. And then in January, we would drop all of them. And sometimes there would be 10 or 12 of them, and sometimes there'd be 20 of them, whatever we could get done, and that got old after a while, but we did that for like 4 or 5 years. And listenership just wasn't growing. That's a long time. Dropping, 15 episodes in January and then nothing for the rest of the year. Like people kind of forget about you, and
Right.
I would always see this huge spike for January, February, and March for the listens. And then that was it, and so it was good. It was lots of retention and stuff, but there was 9 months out of the year where it wasn't doing anything. And but I'm also like, what I do full time is writing, so that was like okay, because that's what I was spending the majority of my time doing. But I have figured out a better way to work with writing and doing some other creative stuff that has since turned into a monthly podcast. So there's a new episode that drops every month now, and that's been happening since season 5, I think. And it's stupidly overproduced, so it's like a storytelling podcast. And so there's a musical bed, and sometimes there's sound effects, and I pull in clips from movies and other videos and stuff to try to fully tell or overtell a story. And typically it's a spooky one, and typically it's something that's based on a true story. So we share stories about black-eyed kids, about haunted lighthouses or other UFO experiences, and all that good stuff. And we just I think last Sunday I dropped a black-eyed kid episode. It's like 8 stories, and it came out pretty good. Lots of spooky black-eyed kid stories.
Yeah, the video that you posted on your socials that goes with that episode was amazing. I don't know
Oh,
where
thanks,
the
man.
hell you got it or how you made it or whatever. And I'm like, because I was watching it and I was like, is that his girlfriend? Did he film his girlfriend and like 2 kids? Like, I was like, how did he make this? Like, did he AI generate this? Is this AI generated?
Trade secrets, man. Trade secrets. No, what I love about being like DIY and underground is that I steal a lot of stuff. But I'll use it in very short clips. It's very reminiscent of how I make music, and I'm a hip hop producer.
Yep.
That's like been my background for over 20 years, and a lot of hip hop is sampling. So I kind of take that sampling mindset and put it into the podcast. So I'll sample stuff from videos and movies and things like that, and I'll do that when I make the promotional teasers, for the podcast.
Yep.
And since those teasers are really only like 45 seconds or so, I think it's okay to use a little bit of video here and there. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
really
I
hurting
agree.
anyone. And, they're not getting millions of views. So, no one's, no money's being stolen from anyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, I really enjoy listening to. So if any of the listeners are interested, definitely go check out Nomar's podcast. It's amazing. I've come to really enjoy it, but I just, what I thought of while you were talking is I was just on another podcast in studio. The guys live right down the street.
Oh, cool.
Huge podcast. Like 30,000 listeners or something like that, 30,000 downloads just in this like for the year.
Wow.
And they just started this year. And I was just thinking it'd be really great to get you on their show to promote your book.
That would be amazing.
Just because of their listeners. So
Yeah.
if you don't mind, I was gonna give Scott, is it Scott and Ryan, your info so they can reach out to you if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be amazing. Thank you, dude.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Um,
Everybody loves a good ghost story. From the renowned haunting of the Amityville Horror House to the lesser-known curse of the Bassano Vase, legends of the ghostly and macabre have been fascinating and frightening us for centuries. But have you ever wondered if there's any truth behind the lore? Over the last 8 years that I've spent as a paranormal researcher, I have constantly asked one important question. Is this a hoax, or could it truly be a haunt? I'm Courtney Hayes, host of the podcast Haunts, where every week I dissect another ghostly legend in an effort to find the truth that lies within. Listen to Haunts for free on your favorite podcasting app and help me to unveil the unknown.
And so, if you don't mind, like, what is, so you revised some of these some of these stories. I heard that you re-interviewed some people too. What was the process like for this, for revising this?
It was, it was pretty tedious, to be honest. Like, but it's interesting. Even though it was tedious, it's like a tedious that like you don't mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was contacting a lot of people and hoping that people remembered me after 6, 7, 8, 10 years, you know?
Yeah.
And some, I actually think everyone that I contacted and got back to me, obviously like remembered me. Some people I might have just had old contact information and, you know, further searches online or whatever, I couldn't, you know, find a better way to contact them. So that kind of sucked. But I was still able to like dig and find additional information that I had missed beforehand so I could tell a more well-rounded story, you know. But yeah, it was sending out a lot of feelers to people, and it was really just, hey, remember me? And you shared this story, and I'm actually like rewriting the book, and you know, can we talk more about your, you know, what happened? And they were like, yeah. And you know, so I got better at asking certain types of questions, you know, and getting a little bit more information from people, and by doing that and reminding somebody of their experience and then asking hopefully some pointed questions, it'll trigger some more memory. And that did in fact happen with some people. They're like, oh my god, you're right, like I forgot to tell you this, or you know what, this happened the week before, I didn't even think about putting those two things together, that's interesting, you know. Or maybe a light in the sky was seen, but then the big experience happened a week later, or whatever, you know, the case may be. So that was interesting, and a lot of fun, and it's cool to reconnect with people. I think sometimes researchers and writers, and probably podcast people and even documentarians have a way of kind of just getting a story from a witness and then wiping your hands clean of them. You know, it's like, I got what I needed, and you can go away type of thing. And I'm just very thankful that I left a good impression with a lot of these people, so they were willing to talk to me again. And like you were saying before, the mental health aspect, sometimes it's shitty to bring up this stuff again, you know. And
yeah,
I'm the same dude coming around 6, 8, 10 years later. You're like, can we talk about that again, please? And and a lot of people were cool with it, you know. So that's good.
That is good. That is
yeah.
Good. So you do like readings at the libraries and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and you know, it's more like storytelling. Like, I'm not standing there with a book in my hands. I'm telling stories. But yeah, it's storytelling.
Yeah. What I can't really say your favorite, because I'm sure it's really hard to pick out of you know, so many stories.
Yeah.
But I guess which stories would you say you gravitate to the most when you are doing your speaking events?
Yeah, I like to share the really strange stuff, and the stuff you wouldn't expect that would happen in Maine, you know. And also just to show like how vast the experiences are in Maine. when I was conducting research for this new version of the book and finding new, never before published stories, I came across a story that actually was published before, but it was published back in the 60s in a newspaper out of Waterville. And, anytime I research or like I'm in the throes of doing a new book, I'll resubscribe to newspapers.com and, have that for a couple of months so you can look back at old newspapers and all that good stuff. And I was doing that then, during the 10th anniversary edition, but I was also doing that during the first book. And I don't know if it was newspapers.com at the time, but I had subscribed to something that had newspapers, old archived newspapers. And I never came across this story before. I came across this story in 2023. Like, that's just crazy to me. And it happened in 65 and it was actually published locally, but it was the story of an entire class, an elementary school class of kids and their teacher who saw a UFO. It happened.
Story.
You have?
I think so.
Okay.
Actually, you want to know what? I might have just heard you talking about it on a podcast that you're recently on, probably, actually.
You might have, yeah.
But go ahead.
No, that's possible, yeah. But this was like 9 a.m, and this kid, he's in the middle of class, and they're all like 10, 11, 12 years old, something like that. And they're in the middle of like a lesson, and the kid starts to hear this beeping sound coming from like outside, and he's like, what the hell is that? And so he just kind of gets up and to go look out the window and kind of like forgets his schoolwork and just goes up to the window and starts looking, and he sees this black dot out in the sky, and he's like, what the hell is that? And it's getting bigger. And so as it's getting bigger, he's like, and he audibly gasps, and that gets the kid's attention, the rest of the class.
Yeah.
He's like, you guys got to see this, and so all the kids kind of rush up, and the teacher's like, what the? So now the whole class is outside or at the windows, and they're looking in the sky, and they're seeing this black dot get bigger and bigger, and it's not getting bigger, it's getting closer. And as it gets closer, it's not black, it's actually silver. And it's an oval, but there's a black thing on the bottom of it that's spinning. And this UFO goes right across the windows in front of them. And they're on the second floor. And it's descending as it does this. And it appears to land behind a house. And the kids are going wild, right? And the teacher's like, oh my God. So she goes and gets the principal. And the principal is like, what? So he like sequesters the kids and tries to keep them separated so they're not like feeding information to each other. Yeah. And he starts interviewing them one by one. And then he has them draw what they saw. And they all drew this similar like oval thing with like this weird spinny black thing on the bottom that they, drew the chalk really heavy there. And it had like an antenna pointing out the front of it. And there was a little like light thing on top that they drew. And they were all very similar. And so the principal decided to call the newspaper and asked if anybody had reported anything strange recently, any, lights in the sky or anything. And they said, yeah, earlier today. And there's this railroad worker who was outside, and he was just one town over. I think the railroad worker was in Oakland, and the school was in Fairfield, which is all near the Waterville area. And the worker was outside, and he would hear a beeping sound, and he looked up and he saw this black dot fly over. He's like, okay, that was weird. A couple minutes later, beeping, a bigger black dot flew over. This kept happening like 10, 12, 15 times. And every time he saw the thing, it was bigger until he saw that it was silver with a little black thing on the bottom. And he described it as like the bottom of a teacup from his perspective, being underneath it. And so that's what the reporter or the newspaper told the principal. And then the newspaper asked if they could send a reporter out to talk to the kids and, take pictures and all that stuff. And the principal was like, sure. So they came out, and some of the kids retold their stories to the reporter. And then the reporter took pictures of the kids in front of their UFO drawing. And the story came out, I think just a few days later, like it was like the Saturday edition or something. And right next to the story about the kids and the UFO was a story about a meteor shower. And a lot of the people in town read both stories and just assumed the kids misinterpreted what they saw, despite it being completely different and flying by the window, and that an adult actually saw it as well.
Mhm.
So the story, in my opinion, because of that, this is all conjecture at this point, just my opinion, but I feel like there wasn't a whole lot of fanfare with the story because of how those two stories were kind of published together. But it was just crazy that I didn't find that story until last year. It just and it just
wild.
what else am I missing? You know what I mean? I'm sure there's a
Right.
ton. I'm sure there's a
I bet.
ton,
I
and I
bet
can't wait. I
a
can't
whole
wait to find
bunch
more.
flew under the radar. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it's weird that they decided to run a meteor shower right next to a UFO that
yeah.
is a ball shape. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right.
Like, I feel like
And
that was done on purpose.
yeah, I feel like that was too. Probably the editor or something was,
Yeah,
we gotta, they don't want to seem like crackpots or whatever, because it has such a stigma to it. That's
it sure
slowly
does.
going away, but in '65 it absolutely had a stigma.
Oh yeah, for sure, for
Mm.
sure. Therapy alone still has a stigma on a lot of these encounters, which is why I love, bringing people on to talk about this stuff, to provide that, you know, unbiased, safe space for people to just
Yeah.
tell their experiences. You know what I
It's
mean?
so important. It's so important. I'm glad you said that. Like having a safe space and having somebody who has a non-judgmental ear and shows kindness, like that's all you have to do. And it's not hard. And
Mm,
for a lot of these witnesses, it's tough to tell these stories and they don't want to, and so if you can be a space, if I can be a space for that, like it's so good for the community.
absolutely, I agree
Yeah.
110% with that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's it's been since I've started this, I've made so many, like, everybody in this field is just so friendly too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I've made so many friends. And I check up on everybody once in a while, which actually I'm due to check up on Valerie, because I'm usually check up on them about a month or two after, their episode has aired
Yeah.
or so.
Yeah.
um, and I'll just say, "Hey, what's up? How's it going?" or something like that.
Yeah.
And fortunately, with you, I get to see you every once in a while, so I don't have to ask you. I can just ask you when I see you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it it's a lot of fun talking to people, and these experiences that, like, in your books and stuff like that, they're fun to to um to read, to think about too.
Yeah.
Um, sometimes people's stories, I'm like, "Mm, are you sure?"
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and tell them that they didn't experience what they
Oh
experienced, or that
yeah.
they could experience something completely different,
Yeah.
like a therapist would, and be like, "Hey, you're hallucinating because you have PTSD."
Right, right, right. Yeah, I think it's really important. It's not even about believing them, and it's not about proof. It's
Right.
about a safe space and for
Hmm.
them to be able to talk in an uninhibited way, like that's just so important, and that can really help someone's psyche. Um,
For sure. For
there was
sure.
this woman who I interviewed. It was a few years ago now, but she's had some incredible things that had happened to her throughout her life, and it almost happened like once a decade. It seemed like it was an odd pattern I hadn't experienced in someone before. And even though the stories were strange and I thought they were fascinating, she was really upset by them. And at the end of the interview, like her eyes were watering,
Hmm.
and she's like, "Why me?" And of course, I didn't have an answer. Like there's just, no one can answer that. But what I did say was, all I can tell you is that with you allowing me to share your story, somebody else who had something similar happen, who feels like they cannot share their story, will read yours and maybe not feel so alone. And that wasn't the answer she was looking for, but she appreciated the sentiment, because I feel like if she had had those opportunities, prior to talking to me, maybe she wouldn't be feeling this way, and
Right.
so if I can offer at least that kind of solace, I feel like I'm doing something right, and I also feel like it's a matter of like historical record. There's nobody official is going around documenting these stories. So there's people like you that are having people on. There's people like me writing down these stories, and I think it's good to keep track of them and to see how many we can find. It's important stuff. It's interesting stories, and it's an interesting part of history.
Keep the stories alive for the future generations,
Hmm.
especially like stories that have been passed down, like not only like people's like encounter stories and stuff like that, but like our Cherryfield goat man, like that's a weird
Right.
ass story,
It is a weird ass story, but it's amazing. Or the
It is
Spectre
amazing.
Moose,
Yeah, and that too. And
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Zook. Hey, guys, I'm Drewski. Hey, don't touch that. Don't touch that! Welcome to Cryptid Warfare! And if you have a story or encounter, shoot us an email or a detailed voice message to cryptidwarfare@gmail.com. That's CRYPTIDWARFARE@gmail.com.
to touch on what you were just talking about with that lady, I just had Karen Wilkinson on.
Oh.
I don't know if you know her at all,
Yeah.
but she's author of Stolen Seed, where she had abductions her entire life, and like the first
Yeah.
like wasn't even we hadn't even been recording 10 minutes, and we're both fucking blubbering crying to each
Oh,
other
man.
about like mental health and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
It's so tough, dude. It's so
yeah.
tough. And, Mike getting through Mike's book, it gets kind of dark towards the end. And there's some light right at the end of it, which is amazing. And he's in a really great place now. But Mike got to a really dark place, to the point where there were plans being made to maybe not be around anymore, and I can feel that way. Sometimes I suffer from anxiety and depression, and I do have suicidal ideation from time to time, and it's not a fun thing. And while my catalyst for those feelings is not extraterrestrial, Mike and I can still relate by having those symptoms, and knowing how those symptoms can make us feel. It just really sucks, and it makes it that much easier to try to be in alignment with somebody. Like, you're telling me something awful, I could be telling him something awful, that that I could have some assault in my background that is gives me anxiety and depression the way I feel. And it's not, I'm not looking for Mike to believe me. I'm just looking for Mike to be nice to me, like
Yeah.
while I share something terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Look at you like a human. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. And and again, there's some people in our field that have trouble doing that, or are only looking for stories and nothing else, and that's
Yeah, that's the terrible part
yeah, yeah.
of this. But yeah, no, I share those same feelings, because I did try twice, and I contemplated a third time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I might have told you, because the one of the stories that I had shared with you happened probably like a year after the first time. So I was only 9 years old the first time.
Jesus. Yeah.
And then the second time I was 13, and then the contemplation part I was 32, I think.
Wow.
Or 30, somewhere's in there.
Yeah.
Either between 30 or 32, but it was recent, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And I just I feel like patience is a big key when it comes to those kind of things. Like, you may feel like, you're at the end and you can't really go on anymore, but if you just like a storm, you wait out the storm,
Yeah.
it's gonna pass,
Mhm. It's really tough to see that in the
It is.
moment. And
It absolutely is.
and I love that, in my experience for me and Mike, he is somebody that I can call on if I find myself in that state,
Mm.
and if I don't believe it's going to pass, I can talk to him and he will remind me of that. Or he'll just be there to listen. The same goes with my girlfriend. She is always somebody I can call upon if I'm in a really bad state. And and it's just for somebody to exist with me,
Yeah.
in that space. And it's not to bring them down, but it's for me to not, I guess, be alone or whatever the hell. But
Yeah, and you're not looking for answers. You're just looking for
no,
somebody to talk to vent
yeah,
to, you know what I mean? You just want
right,
to get it off your chest,
right. And
say it out loud.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's funny because sometimes we'll say this stuff out loud because we'll be in our heads. We'll be in our heads so fucking much. You know what I mean? And it's the whole thing. It's our entire world. But if you could just take a fucking moment and, see past your nose and say it out loud, you would see how silly it is. And when you're in that moment, you just can't do it. I've been there. And, you can't just pull yourself out of it. Or, the boomer advice, like, just smile. Just have you tried being happy? That
Yes.
bullshit stuff doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
Uh-huh.
you can't get out of those moments. And but man, if you can get a point of lucidity and be able to say something out loud, or you have somebody you can call upon, like Mike, like, hey Nomar, this is Mike talking to me. Nomar, why don't you say that shit out loud and see how dumb it sounds? Okay, blah 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 blah. Fuck, you're right. It does sound dumb. And now you can laugh together. And
Yeah. That's good to have. I'm glad you have that, man.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I've always had it, but for some reason, my generation, man, like Generation X, dude, like there's some of us anyways where we feel like there was a point in time, because it's not now, but there was a point in time for some reason, like the late 90s to like 2010, if I'm going to put a time frame on it, where it just didn't seem cool if you didn't have your shit together or something, or like you couldn't talk about it. So I would get embarrassed at the drop of a hat if something untoward about me became public knowledge. Like I'm overweight. Oh my God, I can't. I got to wear baggy clothes, or like, or I don't read as fast as other people, or you know what I mean, like just really dumb things, or like a lot bigger things, like I'm depressed. I think I have depression. I'm not just sad, and that, boy, I can't, that's embarrassing to talk about. I don't want anybody to know that, I don't know why we had to hide that for so long, like my generation. And I know I'm speaking very generally right now, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that have experienced it and a lot that haven't. But in my experience, I don't know why I had to be like that for so long, because it's so much more freeing just to be fucking honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is what sucks right now, or this is what's going good, or like it's okay to have feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I felt like that all through, especially my teenage years. Like I was like, I don't cry, man. I'm
Yeah,
tough,
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah, exactly.
And that's the way, because I got picked on a lot when I was growing up. And
Yeah,
my dad, I remember my dad telling me, like, freaking, if somebody's gonna hit you, freaking knock them out, make sure that they can't hit you again, or something like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And my mom would be like, the bigger man walks away. And then so I had these two different like things.
yeah.
But also, like, not to get into too much of like my mom, but like my mom put her hands on me a lot. So for her to tell me the bigger man walks away, I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and then my dad had barely ever touched me in a violent way. Like, he would imply it, but he would never actually do
yeah,
it. And
yeah.
I mean, they were separated the majority of my life. So I was like, would always go from a hostile home to a home for 2 days that seemed not more loving, but like safer. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
But yeah, my dad's just like, knock him out. And then so I did. So that's what I started doing. I was like, well, my dad seems to like know a little bit better because I mean, my dad doesn't abuse me, and and then I got this over here, and then I'm just gonna listen to my dad, and then I started like getting in trouble, like big trouble. I started getting
Right.
arrested and stuff like that. My
Yeah,
dad's like,
that's not good.
the bigger man walks away, and I was like, excuse me,
You
what did
motherfucker.
you say? What did you just say? You've been telling me to knock people out, then I started knocking people out. I used to get picked on for my nose too. Like my nose is pretty big, and people would make fun of it. And then for a long time, it didn't bother me. But then, like once it got really consistent, I was like, all right, dude, like this is enough. Like I've had
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
So,
And for
um,
me, I was always scared. Growing up, I was scared. My home environment wasn't the best, and I would avoid confrontation at any given moment, and I became like a jokester, and
yeah,
putting me at the butt of the jokes, and because if I'm already making fun of myself, hopefully you won't, type of
yeah,
scenario,
yeah,
so know what you
yeah.
mean, man, and it's tough, and if we can create safe spaces, because we know what it's like on the other end, and we don't want to
Mm.
we don't want to make people feel that way.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's what's important with talking to people about their stories, so
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
they don't feel like that because, there's I've never had an experience where I felt like I would end up being so depressed to the point where I wanted to like end things and stuff like that. So like I can't relate, and like I can relate to an extent, but like man, to be like seeing something that a lot of people these days don't believe in,
Yeah.
and to be at that point where you're just like, I'm ready to go, like that's got to be scary.
Yeah. Very lonely place.
Mm,
And talking about our childhoods a little bit and stuff, I'm reminded of a story, and I think the kid was like 9 or 10 years old, and it was in like your neck of the woods. But from what I remember, it was like morning time, and like it had just like snowed, and he wanted to go outside with his sister and play. And I think the sister was just a little bit older, and but mom said that they were having to like go somewhere, like in the early afternoon, so they could go outside for a little bit, but they had to make sure they were back in time. So they go. Have you heard this?
I think so. Is it right? It was happened right here in Maine,
Yeah,
Sanford.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They went out, and the kid had glasses.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then they went out into the woods because they were pretending to hunt monsters,
Right.
and he just happened to almost seemed like he walked through a portal and saw a village of mushroom people, and then
Yeah,
um
yeah.
and then his glasses got knocked off, and then his sister stepped on him,
Yeah.
and um that sounds like my story.
It is your story, and and it's in the new book, and I thank you so much for being a part of the book and sharing a story like that. And I got to tell you, man, there's a lot of strange stories in the book, and
Yeah,
yours is a top 5 strangest stories that's in the book.
nice.
There's another one that kind of rivals it, like yours, the mushroom people one, because you actually have a couple stories in there. But your mushroom story and this other story that I have called Static in the Sky, they're kind of like my 2 favorite stories in the book. And those 2 stories are some of the stories that I share when I go to speak at libraries and things like that. And it's, the mushroom people of Sanford. And I really appreciate you letting me use your story in my book. And, if that's not a selling factor for this book to your listeners, like you got to read Kevin's stories. They're friggin' great.
Yeah. Um, man, I'm gracious. I'm grateful that you took the time to like talk to me about them and to actually insert them into your book. Like
For sure.
that means a lot to me, to be
Well,
honest with you.
yeah.
And um a lot of people tend to like the mushrooms because it's so weird. Like
Yeah.
and like for a long time I didn't tell anybody because I thought I was thought I was crazy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I mean, I remember it
Yeah.
through regression, but like
Yeah.
still, like I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Have you
remember
told your
everything
sister
around
yet?
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
My sister and I has talked about it, and she's just like, she's like, I remember stepping on your glasses
Yeah. Yeah.
and you know, like stuff like that. She's like, I remember being out there, but I don't really,
Yeah.
you know.
And after a while, like you were out there and you saw these little tracks in the snow
Yes.
that were like leading to the base of this tree. I can't remember if the tree was really big or not, but it was leading to the base of this tree. But all of a sudden, it's like you stepped through a portal because like there was this blue haze
Yes. Yeah. It was like
around.
it was almost like it's almost like you know, the when people put the plastic wrap across the doorway and like, hey Tim, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was like obviously I didn't feel anything against my face, but like it was just like I'm walking and then it was just like blue over my eyes. And I was
Yeah.
just like, what is happening? And
Yeah.
then, you know, I saw them not too far in front of me and they were stoking a fire and there was, you know, there's huts made of mushrooms and they were like 3 inches tall, maybe
Yeah.
ish. They didn't look like people. They just looked
Yeah.
like mushrooms moving
Like
around.
mushrooms, but like, yeah, like hominid tiny mushrooms. It's so weird,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
And another story you told me, and we don't have to get into it because we do want to save something for some, you know, for the book, but you actually had potentially some dogman sighting
Yep.
that happened. And I have a dogman sighting that I don't think I've ever shared publicly. It's not my story, but it's a story that I was told, boy, it's probably close to 10 years ago now because it was right around when I was doing research or I was in the editing stages of UFOs Over Maine, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But this, shit, you know, maybe it was after that because I think the guy actually contacted me because of UFOs Over Maine. So it was
Oh, okay.
probably like 7-8 years ago. But this guy, he was up in northwestern Maine. I can't remember if it was like Jackman or something like that, but he, you know, he was up there. And so strange. So he's there on this land to like go hunting, and he's got like an RV in his pickup, and he's got his wife and a little kid. And the kid's like 2 years old. It's his son. And the wife is inside and she's like kind of like preparing a salad and stuff because like they're going to do a barbecue soon and whatnot. And the little kid is playing out in this little open area. And dad is sitting in like a long chair in front of the RV. And while he's watching the kid, he looks up and he notices there's some sort of creature at the tree line. And the creature is intently watching his kid. And he said the creature is crouched down. So it's like 4 feet tall. But he can tell it's crouched down because he's seeing like a side view of this creature. And the legs are crouched. And he said it almost looked like a kangaroo. Like if a kangaroo was standing, you know how the sides of their legs looked?
Yeah, yeah.
But he's really focusing on these legs because he's like, what the hell? Like, is that a kangaroo? What am I looking at? And he kind of follows it up and he sees that it has like a barrel chest and it's got arms and hands. And he keeps looking up and he gets to the face and there's this long snout and it's got 2 ears coming up on the side. And he's like, what am I seeing here? And so he sees that it's watching his kid. And he's like, oh shit, like he's afraid now. And like as he's having this thought, this creature stands up and it's bipedal. And he sees it doesn't look like a kangaroo at all. It looks like a big hairy person with like a wolf head. You know, we know that now as like a werewolf or a dog man, but he didn't know what the hell he was looking at, you know? And it stood up almost like it was ready to like run out there and like snatch his kid. So he stood up as fast as he could. He ran out there, snagged his kid and went back into the RV and like locked the door and everything. And, you know, now he's looking out the window of the RV at this thing. And this thing has like scurried back into the woods or something. Like he doesn't know where the hell it went. But once he feels it's safe enough, he pals them all back into the pickup. And they take off. And now he's finally, because he wasn't saying anything. He was just like, freaking out. And his wife's like, "What the hell are you doing? What's happening?" And I think all he was saying is that there's an animal out there. So anyways, he told me this story, and he had done some research afterwards, like, what the hell is this thing? He's like, I think I saw a werewolf, or and I let him know about dogmen, and he's like, wow, that's crazy. He's like, I think a dogman wanted to like snatch and eat my kid. It was crazy, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man, because when you were first talking about that, when you were first describing what it looked like, I was thinking about the Bildad.
Oh yeah.
The
The
Bildad's
Bildad's
a
so
funky
weird,
looking
man.
thing.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like a kangaroo.
It does, man. What do you remember what town the Bildad's out of? I forget, dude.
I don't. We were just talking about it on Spaced Out Radio on Sunday,
nice,
because we
nice,
were
nice.
talking about Maine cryptids, because
Yeah.
she was like, because she lives in Georgia, and she's like, I was looking into Maine cryptids, and you guys got a lot of cryptids up there, and I was like, yeah, we do. I was like, and I don't know half of them.
There's a lot, dude.
Yeah, there really is. But yeah, dude, that's a scary situation.
Yeah.
I know when I had my thing, like I was just looking at it, I was just, nope, I'm dying, like I'm about to die, kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
feeling.
And in your story, like it may have been working with other like local animals, because Kevin had this like female coyote or whatever, or maybe it was a wolf, but like limping up onto your property,
Yep.
like it needed help, like to
Yeah.
lure you out. It's crazy.
That's the dude. I've thought about that so many times since, and I was just like,
Yeah.
and because a lot of these like dogman stories and stuff, they're around coyotes, but they've never been like seemingly to work with them. And I'm like, I was like, because I've told the story on a another podcast, and that's what they were saying. Like you know, I've never heard them like actually trying to work with coyotes or anything.
Yeah.
They're usually eating coyotes
Right.
and stuff like that. And I was like, I wonder, like I kind of think of it like this, like the coyotes are out there, so he can't. It was drawn in to the noise of the coyotes,
Mm.
and then this coyote's just like limping and acting hurt, like it wants to somebody to come out. It knows that I have dogs, so because they can hear them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it was just like trying to get something out so that the pack could ambush. And I think
Yeah.
that the dog man just happened to come along
Like,
at
yeah,
that
and
time.
maybe like take advantage of that or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm kind of thinking of
Yeah.
the entire situation. But
Yeah,
yeah, and
that's
then
interesting.
maybe afterwards, he snacked on some coyotes or
Yeah.
she, whatever it was, whichever,
Whatever. Yeah. Like you never
so
know. You know what? Honestly, probably a she. Like it always seems like in the animal world, the females are like, the big, tough, like
yes,
aggressive ones. You know what I mean? Like,
that's true. That's true. It's like a lot of dogs, the females team, like dog species, the females seem bigger
yeah.
than the men.
And the
So
males are like kind of always pretty and you know.
yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah.
And then you get the humans, and the humans are like, I have to be big and masculine
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I can't talk about my feelings.
Right.
Oh
Stupid
man,
men.
you fucking men
God damn it.
ruining everything. Well, Nomar,
Yeah.
if you don't mind,
Yeah.
letting everybody know where they can find your book.
Sure. So, you can find it on Amazon. There's an ebook and a print version. You can also find it on my own online store, and I'll make sure Kevin has the links, but it's slevikstore.company.site. And if you order it through me, you'll get an autographed version, and I'll give you a bookmark, and it also comes with a sticker, and they're really cute alien and UFO stickers. So they're really cool, and I want to be able to send you a few little extras if you order it from me. And if you get it from Amazon and it's free shipping and all that good stuff, I get it, I understand, but you get it through me, it might cost a little bit more, but you get some extra stuff. And even though I do get paid through an Amazon purchase, I definitely get like the full amount if you get it through me. So that's always appreciated. But if you get it through Amazon, I still appreciate you. And the cost of the book is $25. So it's over 400 pages, but for $25, and I think it's a steal of a deal. If you do want the ebook version, it's $8.99, and you get all the stories. I could sign your phone, I guess, but that would be kind of weird, to
Yeah.
put permanent marker on the screen of your phone. But I'll do it if you want me to, though.
That's funny.
Yeah. But since my name is so unique, though, you can just do a Google search for Nomar Slevik and like UFOs or Nomar Slevik books, and my stuff will come right up.
Nice. And where can they find your podcast? What platforms are you on?
Yeah, my podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. Through my details on the behind the scenes of the podcast, where it gets listened to most is Apple and Spotify. So if you're on there, give it a search. I Want to Believe. But if you just want to do a plain old Google search, you can do I Want to Believe Nomar Slevik, and it'll come right up. And it's on podcast aggregators, so if you use a Castbox or something, it'll be on there as well. But yeah, Spotify and Apple is where most people listen to it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I freaking dude, I love your podcast. I can't like every time I can, I tell somebody about it. I'll be like, dude, you like podcasts? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, I have one. It's called Where the Weird Ones Are. But if you're into like some weird stuff too, like there's this podcast called I Want to Believe. You should check that out. They're like, oh, okay. Some lady came internet for she was like a door-to-door salesman for it's Xfinity, I think, because I ended up getting it because it was 10 times cheaper than Atlantic Broadband.
Okay, it wasn't Fidium?
No.
We had Fidium come knocking over here, but
okay. And she was really cute too, actually. And
there you go.
she was entering like information into her little like computer thing, and I'm sitting there on my front steps because it was over the summer, and I was just sitting there. She asked for a couple questions, and then she's just like going through stuff, and there was like this big long silence, and I was like, you listen to podcasts? She's like, yeah, I do. And I was like, what kind of stuff you like? And she's like, oh, I typical woman. I listen to murder mysteries, like true crime stuff. I'm like, oh, like serial killers and stuff. She's like, yeah. And I go, well, I have a podcast. She's like, do you talk about murder mysteries? I go, no. She goes, what do you talk about? I was like, I talk about ghosts, cryptids, UFOs. She's like, oh, I love that stuff. And I was like, do you? I was like, you should check it out. I gave her my name, my podcast name. I even gave her a card. And I was like, and while we're talking, you should check out this other podcast, I Want to Believe. And she's like, what's that one about? I was like, well, I only listened to a couple episodes so far, but they've been mainly UFO encounters. So if you're into UFOs,
awesome.
She's like, oh, and I was like, and he's an author from Maine. So, and she's like, oh, okay. And then, yeah, so
cool, man.
But yeah, I'm going to freaking,
awesome.
I'm going to message Scott after we get off here and get you on there. So, man, I've been seeing you making your rounds. I really hope this book does well for you.
Thanks, man.
I'm rooting for you. So
I appreciate it. And for the record, when I listen to podcasts, like for my own enjoyment, a lot of it is true crime. I am a true crime junkie.
I was talking shit, but I do too. I ain't gonna lie, I do too.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I actually was just on a true crime podcast, telling a true crime story from the Waterville area. Ayla Reynolds, if you remember that.
Oh yeah.
I was telling
what
that
podcast
story.
was it on?
It's called Like Mother, Like Murder.
Oh, yeah.
So by the time this episode comes out, the episode for Like Mother, Like Murder will have already come out. So since I'm talking to you right now, it comes out on Thursday.
Awesome.
So
yeah, I'm gonna check it out, and you should check it out too. Not you, but your audience.
I'll
I
check
mean,
it out.
you could listen too if you want. Yeah.
I might. I like to listen to myself sometimes.
That's funny. Just a quick side note. Mike, when Granite Skies came out, Mike and I must have done 200 podcasts together. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
We did the rounds for like 2 years, it felt like, and we were on everybody, like Jim Harold, like, some of the big ones, a lot of the small ones. It was crazy. And we could never, ever listen to ourselves. We never listened back to ourselves, And so what we would end up doing is we would get off the podcast like we're about to do, but then we would call each other, like on the phone and be like, hey man, how'd you think that go? Did that go okay? Like, yeah, man, you sounded good. I'm like, oh shit, you sounded good too, dude. But we wouldn't listen to it, and we just hope for the best, It's crazy.
That's funny. Because when I first started, I was listening to every episode that I put out,
Yeah.
of my own podcast and stuff like that. And now, like, I don't care. I'm just like, it is what it is. If it sounds like shit, it sounds like shit. I don't care anymore.
And for me, it's ridiculous, dude. Like, because the type of one that I make, it's so produced that I need to make sure it sounds right. So I end up listening to it like 10 times. But it's because I'll make this change or I'll make that change, then I gotta listen to it again. And I can't listen just to that part. I gotta hear how it sounds leading up to that part. And then how it sounds,
Right.
So
Because we listen to it editing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So by the time it comes out, I'm like fucking sick of it. But now I've got to promote it, and I'm like, oh god. Like, hopefully you'll like this fucking one. Here you go.
Oh man. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Nomar Slevik. I would appreciate it if you checked out his book from his website rather than Amazon. But if, again, like Nomar said, if you get it from Amazon, no hate. He still appreciates it.
Yep.
Also, check out his podcast, leave a rating and review. In the review, which I think is mainly Apple. I think Spotify might allow you to do kind of sort of a review on each episode, not like the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah. But when you leave your review, be like, I'm here because I heard you on Kevin's show. So
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Hey, did you listen to the podcast that I did with Drew and
I
Zuck?
I did.
Yeah. So you heard the shout out and everything?
I did.
Awesome.
It was awesome. I appreciated it. And then I listened to them on yours too.
Oh,
so,
good. Yeah, they did it. They did a good job, man. I love their stories and stuff.
Yeah, they're amazing dudes. We've become pretty close. I've become pretty close with them.
Cool.
I've become pretty close with a lot of these people, but like Drew and Zook especially.
Cool.
They're almost like kind of like brothers now. Like I went down to Kentucky for CryptidCon. We hung out the whole entire weekend. It just felt like I was back in high school hanging out with a bunch of my buddies all over again,
awesome.
Which was pretty nice.
Yeah, they seem like nice guys. Tell them I said hi when you talk to them again.
I definitely will, sir. I definitely will. Well, everybody, I appreciate you for being here. So remember, leave like, follow, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. I would appreciate it. It helps the show out tremendously. Leave a rating and review. That also helps. You can leave a rating and review on my website, where the weird ones are podcast.com. There should be a new blog entry coming out pretty soon. Conspiracies Tuesdays are going on the Patreon now, exclusively. So if you're interested in listening to those, subscribe to the Patreon. Other than that, remember, question everything and stay weird.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.
Because in the end, none of us have very long on this earth. Life is fleeting. And if you're ever distressed, cast your eyes to the summer sky, when the stars are strung across the velvety night, and when a shooting star streaks through the blackness, turning night into day. make a wish.